Welcome, college basketball fans, to the Full Court Press Podcast with LT and Sammy D. This is the podcast that brings you legendary stories from college basketball's golden era and dives in deep with a current analysis of today's game. Get ready for the most energetic and entertaining college basketball podcast around. Let's get it.
Okay, hey, Luke Taylor here, Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience with my guy Sammy D. We got some shit to talk about today.
What's up, LT?
You know what's up? 1,800 plus players in the transfer portal. We are taping this on Tuesday afternoon. This goes on May 2nd. I am so excited for all of it to be over. 1,800 plus players in the transfer portal. 1,100 have found homes. What's going to happen with the 700 that haven't found homes yet?
They're expecting another 100 in the next 24 hours. They're saying it's going to get close to 2,000 names in the transfer portal this year.
I didn't enter. Did you?
I'm not in the transfer portal. I'm staying loyal to you, LT.
Yes. I thought about it. Some couple people were trying to throw some McDonald's bags at me. The problem is there was no cash. There was only Happy Meals, and that only satisfies one group in our house, and that's called the kids. And you know what? It's for the kids, so don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. If you love us, you like us. If you can palate us, or we're palatable, at least I am. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. YouTube, if you're watching it, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't, we've had a whole bunch of new YouTube subscribers, so big up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we keep getting more 5-star reviews. We didn't get one last week, but that's okay. So those are going well. And so you think there's going to be that many? 2,000. It's crazy because Louisville's whole team transferred out. DePaul had nobody. I think DePaul has 11 now. What do you think about our Blue Demons? What are you thinking so far now that we're about a month and a half in of the Chris Holtman era?
I think DePaul's in a lot better shape than they were 2 months ago.
That's a political answer.
Well, I think all you can ask for is improvement.
Yeah, and I would agree with you.
I think the athletic director, Dwayne Peavy, was
vice president.
What's that?
Vice president, athletic
vice
director.
president.
That's how you. Director. It's funny because I call him athletic director. You call him vice president, athletic director.
He's both. I like to call him both. And I think he was kind of put into a corner and I think he was, out of all the early coaching carousel movement, I think DePaul was one of the winners with who they got at a Chris
winning.
Holtman.
Go Demons.
So I think the coach was a really solid pick.
Are you happy with the roster? The roster creation?
It's too hard to tell. I think
you don't want to do an early top 50.
Do you think that they're going to be top 50?
In Illinois, yes.
No, you and I talked a lot the last month about DePaul in the transfer portal, and it's exciting that Holtman was so active right off the bat. Right. Mm-hmm. So I want to give him credit for that. But it's what all these teams and athletic directors and head coaches are having to deal with. It's not just roster management. It's also staffing management. Right. Oh. And so as Coach Holt was putting together the roster the past 2 months, month and a half, whatever it's been now, he's also putting together a staff. Right. Mm-hmm. And DePaul is just one example out of, dozens of other programs. Since January, there's been 64 head coaching jobs open. One.
That's
64. And so when you talk about all these players in the transfer portal, what's happened is, they've opened it up. And so coaches are able to take a better job with more NIL money. But as they take that job, they say, hey, I'm going to take 5 of my players from my former team. Right. And so
but it doesn't seem like 5 guys are going with former players. Here's a perfect example. Coach Church goes from Indiana State to St. Louis. The Bilkins, which you're very familiar with, as am I. He only took 2 players.
For now.
Chris Holtman, he took nobody from, he did get let go by Ohio State, but he didn't take anybody from Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that's a different scenario because Diebler stayed in his position there, so he already had a relationship with a lot of the players, so it's a little different scenario there. I mean, I think the thing with Schertz leaving Indiana State and going to SLU, I think everyone on the planet knew it was a package deal with Robbie Avila, right? And so maybe that was part of it as well, where it's, then Robbie Avila had a price tag on him, right? And so SLU needed to match that, and maybe they didn't have the rest of the funds for other players in there. There's just it's like every team has a different story with what's going on right now. I mean, the whole Louisville, Kentucky.
I'm excited. You know what?
Arkansas.
If Kentucky and Louisville are good, I think it adds to basketball. I think it adds and creates excitement within the state of Kentucky. Because let's be honest, who's crazier? It's bad. Who's more passionate? Kentucky basketball fans are
crazier.
Just wait. Let me finish it. No.
Who's crazier? Don't.
No. I love people from Kentucky. I would have loved to marry my cousin in Kentucky. But the point of the matter is, I say hello, my bad. I'm really bad about the SEC after Coach Conzo Martin's comment about the SEC, and he loved it, man. But anyway, so but no, who's more passionate? Who's more passionate, Kentucky basketball fans or Alabama football fans?
Ooh. It's tough to compare because there's like a different volume, right? There's more Alabama football fans than there are Kentucky basketball fans.
Are there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to say, so I guess now I have to go passionate versus crazy. I think Alabama fans are more passionate for football, whereas Kentucky basketball fans are more crazy.
I like Ashley Judd, though.
Yeah, she's crazy, probably.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I mean, it's like Kentucky has such like a rich history, right? I mean, I don't think you're comparing apples to apples with that comparison, but I mean, Kentucky basketball is just wild, right? I mean, there was rumors out there that, before they hired Mark Pope, there was a couple other names that were offered the position, and people were like sending those coaches death threats. Like, oh, if you don't take this offer, we're going to kill you and your family or something.
Yeah, but here's the thing, okay? But here's the thing. Now, that's crazy to maybe me and you, but that's called normal for some.
Who is that normal to?
Kentucky, according to you, Kentucky basketball fans. I am excited. I am excited for Kentucky basketball. I think Mark Pope listen, they lost in the first round this year, and they had probably the most talented team on the floor by far.
You were there. You were there.
Young. I saw it in the flesh. Here's the thing with Mark Pope, and I've always liked John Calipari. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I've always respectful. There's a lot of coaches I'm respectful for him. I mean, I actually did like him because he was at UMass with Marcus Camby, Lou Rowe. And I remember those teams, Derek Kellogg. I can go on about it. So, but here's the thing with Pope. He knows what Kentucky basketball is. He won there as a player. Now, what I've noticed is the better the player, the harder it is for them to succeed at their alma mater. Clyde Drexler, Juwan Howard. I mean, I can go on. Some could say Anthony Hardaway. So here's the thing. Pope was a very good player. He wasn't like this NBA Hall of Famer or this well-regarded former pro, but he's bringing in some key people. The Amir Williams, the transfer from, I think, Drexel, away from Oklahoma, who I really like. You got Lamont Butler Jr., point guard from San Diego State, been there, done that. He brought in a freshman from his BYU class. The funny thing is the big guy he had at BYU is transferring to Louisville.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I don't know what to think of the whole stuff. There's just so much movement where, you just get cross-eyed reading about it every day. I don't know if I'm buying Mark Pope just because he was I don't know if I'm buying it. I'm not buying it right now.
Okay.
So I do know if I'm gonna buy it or not. I'm not buying it right now.
I am kind of buying it with the thought I might return it.
Okay, that's your
I might.
style. So
Well, no, it's not my style, but it's like my wife. She buys 3 of them and she takes back 2. Actually, it's my mother-in-law's style. She buys 6, takes back 5.
yeah, I think with Mark Pope, there's gonna be less excitement and less top 10 Kentucky teams, but I think you're gonna have more stability in the long run.
Less excitement. They bloody sold out Rupp Arena for a Sunday night for him a press conference and people but waiting. I mean, you tell me there's not excitement in Kentucky.
They could have announced Luke Taylor as the next head coach and they would have sold that arena out. That's how Kentucky basketball is. They're still going to be passionate. They're still going to sell out every game. They're going to win a lot of games. They're going to get a lot of great players. Their NIL budget just skyrocketed with that announcement. I think that's where, Coach Cal was the best at that, right? But I do think that having somebody like Mark Pope, who already has those bluegrass ties into the alumni, the boosters, former players, I think that that's going to help their NIL program. I think they're going to get less one and done players, right? And I think they're going to try to build more of a stable program, which you and I talked a lot this past season. That's what Kentucky needs, right? Like it's not it's not the same system that Cal was really successful with in like the 2010s, right? Where even though you're getting like star freshmen who might stay 1, maybe 2 years, at least you had some consistency there and you're playing on a level playing field across the country, right? What we've seen the last 2 seasons is with the transfer portal and NIL, these McDonald's All-Americans who are 18, 19-year-old freshmen are now playing against really, really good players who have been playing college basketball for 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was, I don't think Kentucky had an answer for that in several games this past year. So I don't know. I like Mark Pope as a person. I like him as a recruiting coach. I think he has a lot to prove with the X's and O's.
Right. And we'll see. I mean, he brought in the one assistant I really liked that he picked up was Josh Hart. Was it Josh Hart? Yeah, Hart. Was it Josh Hart? Kevin Hart? No, Kevin Hart's a comedian. It's Josh Hart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Former NBA player. Yeah, he's a solid recruiter, well respected. The one coach I feel very sorry for, and I apologize my Canadian accent there, is the head coach at Wisconsin. He loses AJ Storr to Kansas, and then he loses Chucky Hepburn to Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you compete like that? Or my favorite is, there's tampering going on if anybody's entering the transfer portal in the last week or so. Like Elijah Hawkins, one of the top point guards. I don't know if he led the nation in assists or I know he was top 3, top 5 from Minnesota. Last week, he just declared for the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, that's these last 2 weeks, you can tell what players were trying to stay loyal to their schools, but trying to work out a deal, right? And I just think that's the new nature of the game, that it's like, hey, you've got a week or 2 weeks before the transfer portal closes to match this number, right? Or make some kind of commitment to me. And if you don't, I'm going to put my name out there. Just fact checking, Mark Pope's new coaching addition is Jason Hart.
Jason Hart.
Yeah, from he was a really good player at Syracuse.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Mm-hmm.
The one team I will say that's really surprised me. I mean, there was rumblings that Coach Woodson was going to be fired from Indiana. What did he pretty much do? He got Omar Ballo from Arizona, who was the top probably portal recruit. Then he brought in a couple other really key players, Miles Rice from Washington State and Cannon Carlisle. And then he just picked up Luke Good from Illinois, who can shoot the rock. So I think Illinois or Indiana is going to be much improved. Illinois is freaking stacking some players too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the 3 teams for me that have won the transfer portal so far are Indiana, like you just mentioned. I mean, Woodson surprised the heck out of me, just how well he did in the transfer portal. Kansas did really good in the transfer portal, as well as getting a final year at Hunter Dickinson. And then the third team that really surprised me is Memphis with Penny Hardaway and how well they've done with the transfer portal, which I think Memphis just has a treasure chest of money that, I think is going to get opened up this next year.
They didn't make the tournament last year. They're
I know,
so talented. That was one of my top 25 picks.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an example where it's like, okay, you had a lot of veteran players on that team that couldn't gel together, right? But they were good. And I do think Hardaway is a good coach. And I think what he's done in the transfer portal the last 4 weeks has been incredibly impressive. And I think if he can get this team playing really well together by the start of the season, they're a top 25 preseason team. And I would not be surprised if they jumped into the top 15, top 10 and stayed there until the tournament.
Yeah, I was thinking that last year, but you see how that worked. You see in that work.
You were really hot on Memphis, and they actually did really well until that final kind of last couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, they had a very big rough patch, but it'll be interesting to see. So we've had a handful of players that we've had on the podcast. Jalen Blackman just committed committed to the University of Miami, Florida, and we thought it was going to be between Indiana and Kentucky. So happy we didn't make that prediction known. We have Raheem Moss is going to the University of Oregon Ducks.
Ooh, that's a good pickup for Oregon. Yeah.
That's a great pickup. You've got Trey Townsend, who we've had, I interviewed a couple times during the tournament. He is going to the University of Arizona, the Wildcats.
Good pick for him too. Everybody thought he was going to stay up. Everyone thought he was going to stay up towards like the Michigan, Midwest area.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have obviously the two guys that went to SLU, Avia, and what was his name? Swope. I just like messing with you. And I feel like we're missing
his name for an entire hour and a half episode.
It wasn't an hour and a half, so he doesn't talk to me anymore. I think that's pretty much all of our players that we've had on the podcast. No, Trevon Spillers went to Wake Forest. So it should be interesting. There's been a lot of talk about transfer portal. This week, we just have no coach. It's just because the transfer portal is about to close. And I know talking to the fantastic SID at Nebraska, we're hoping to get Coach Hoiberg on the podcast, but he said, he's just not scheduling anything right now because he had to cancel someone else for a recruiting visit. So I think there's everything last minute. I think that's our problem with USF and Coach Amir, Raheem and stuff like that. Who knows?
It's just hard for everybody right now. I mean, I read an article this morning where it's okay. A lot of these coaches have a history. I mean, you're recruiting high school players for 2 or 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Going to their games, some games as their sophomore year of high school, junior year, senior year, making a presence. And now in the transfer portal, you've got like 3 to 4 weeks. Right. Yeah. And of course we've had coaches on being like, oh yeah, you're recruiting players in the handshake line after games and that's going on and stuff. But I mean, the grunt of the work is just piled in to like what's going on right now. So it's, shout out to the coaches who are giving us a lot of time. We had 2 incredible episodes the last 2 weeks with Frank Martin from UMass and Quanzo Martin from Missouri State. So if you haven't listened to those were a lot of fun. And shout out to those programs and those coaches, really great guys, and gave us a lot of good insight with what they're going through right now.
And I think the nature of the beast right now with the transfer portal is I feel like listen, I'm going to be a little bit negative toward the NCAA. I love the NCAA. It's created a lot of opportunities for myself and yourself. We would have never met if there was no NCAA. Let's be honest, okay? Never would have met my wife. We wouldn't be here right now.
I would have found you at Bar Chicago one night.
That's probably true, but the likelihood's probably a little bit lower that there's if there's no NCAA. But here's the problem: is I don't like hey, let's just sit on our hands and not do anything. I am kind of getting annoyed of seeing like a kid play 3 years at 3 different schools. I have no problem with NIL. I have no problem of getting yours, getting mine, whatever. But I just think, Coach Martin times 2 both nailed the nail on the head. And I wish the NCAA would say, listen, you get, just like all non-revenue sports, you get 1 free transfer. No questions asked. You don't have to sit out. Boom. If you want to transfer again, you got to sit out a year. And, and I mean, I know you've said, what about contracts, like NIL contracts? And, whether there's buyouts and stuff like that. And, you've heard the argument, well, they're just, kids. Well, when you start getting paid, you're treated like an adult pretty quickly.
Yeah. Getting paid a lot more than 99% of the adults in the US. I mean, there's so many variables. I don't know if there's a right answer today. I think the NCAA needs to commit to saying, hey, we're going to make adjustments every single year, until we kind of find a happy medium. And I do think that's what they're doing. They're just not making announcements about it. I already said there's 64 head coaches who have switched schools in the past few months, and it's like, okay, well, if a coach recruits me and they leave, I should have the ability to leave.
Yeah,
well.
I've got no issue with that. Okay, I've got no issue with that. But you're seeing programs like Wisconsin, who I brought up. Coach ain't leaving. Coach got a contract extension, much deserved. And now two of his best players are by. I mean, shit. What about Arizona State? They were talking about Bobby Hurley maybe letting go at Arizona State or him leaving. He just signed one of the top recruits in the nation.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I don't like the year-to-year thing because it as a fan, it's really hard, right? Like,
hey, what do we talk about our preseason shows?
Good luck, man.
We're gonna have to study.
I'm gonna come on our preseason show so confident too. Like, I'm gonna be like, okay, I know who's gonna make the Elite Eight. I know here's who's gonna win the tournament next year. Like, I mean, I don't know. I told you when we were at the Final Four, I was like, Kansas is gonna win the tournament next year. And I was like, okay, I haven't changed my pick yet.
So. The fact that Hunter Dickerson's coming back makes me nervous. But great player. I just don't think that's the right system. But who knows? Is McCullough coming back?
No, he's projected as a late first round pick.
I know. So, isn't that crazy? Why not come back for a year and just dominate?
I mean, I think that's what they thought they were going to do this year.
Yeah, well, so, hey,
they just didn't have a deep bench. And
no.
Yeah, a couple injuries here and there. And I mean, Dickinson was going to be drafted he's one of the ones that's actually surprised me because he would have been kind of like a lock in the NBA draft. And he's like, I'm going to come back. Dickinson.
Who's that? From who?
Hunter Dickinson. Kansas.
I call him Dickerson.
His name's Dickinson.
Yeah, well, maybe if he played more like Dickerson, I'd like him. Like Eric Dickerson from the Wildcats of Arizona. He was a ball player. I don't think he would have been a lottery pick.
No, I mean, he's probably actually making about the same amount coming back another year. And with his NIL status at Kansas than what he would have made in a rookie contract. And I think he's going to develop into a for sure lottery lock for next year. And potentially early player of the year candidate.
Oh, did I say Eric Dickerson? Shit, he was a football player.
He was football. You're all over the place.
There was a Dickerson from Arizona.
Get it together, LT. Get it together.
So what do you think about like the one free transfer? And then every time you transfer, you have to sit out another year, or can they even enforce that nowadays? I feel like they can't.
I don't think you can enforce it. I think that there needs to be some kind of penalty. And I hate to use the word penalty because I don't want it to look that way, but some kind of accountability is the better word, right, on a player to transfer. And I've said it many times before. If I'm a donor who says, yeah, I'm going to contribute $100,000 to my alma mater or a program's NIL program, they're like, cool, we're going to use 80 grand of that for this one play to get this one stud player. He's a sophomore, like he was freshman of the year in the SEC last year. And then he comes to our program, plays 1 year for us, and then transfers again. Right. Like my investment, like that's not an investment, and that's like, that would be really hard from a booster and alumni perspective. That's really hard to swallow all the movement. And that's why I think there should be some kind of accountability. Okay. You make $100 grand from the university. Just as an example, as a big round number, Yeah, if you leave after 1 year, you need to give us 30% of it back or whatever it is. Like, have some kind of contract in place.
Yeah, the one. Yeah, I'd agree. There's got to be something. I forgot to mention earlier. Another team that I think is going to make potentially some noise is a little team called Maryland. They got Derek Queen, 5-star, but then they got, who I really like, and we tried to get him on the podcast, was Selton Miguel from USF, and they got a couple other players too. So watch out for Maryland. I think Maryland's going to be decent, and then also too Xavier. Xavier got Dante Maddox from Toledo, amongst other things, and Georgetown. I don't think DePaul might struggle a little bit because Georgetown's going to be much improved.
I mean, the Big East is so good. I don't know.
They
Where do you
got
think
three
Kadari
teams
Richmond's
in?
going to
They
go?
got 3 teams in. 3.
Yeah, and how'd all those 3 teams do?
Winning.
Yeah,
UConn.
they
What do you think about
well.
what do you about Mahaney going from St. Mary's to UConn?
Yeah, UConn's got some pretty good. You can. It's obvious that the better a team does, the bigger the microscope is on under them. And I mean, UConn and Coach Hurley's kind of blueprint isn't new to anybody now. I mean, he finds players that work really well in his system, right? You look like Cam Spencer, transferred from Rhode Island the year before, or no, he's at Rutgers, right? And yeah, I mean, fit in perfectly, right? And I think that he's finding these other guys. I think he got an Ivy Leaguer to transfer into UConn next year as well. I mean, he's figured it out. He's figured out what he wants, right? And I think he's only one of a few coaches out there who have figured out how to manage the transfer portal to the best of their ability to fit into their own program. So I expect a good season out of those guys next year. But yeah, you've got a lot of good. I'm looking at like the transfer portal players that are still in there. You've got a lot of good names still in there.
Yeah, Jonell Davis, FAU.
Kadari Richmond.
Yeah, Kadari Richmond's a ball player. I've heard there was rumors that Jonell Davis is not going to Michigan because of his because of his transfer credits and stuff like that. But I guess what they're saying now is there's some kids having issues because they have so many transfer credits from 2-3 different schools that admissions has to be a little bit more what's the word? A little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Not unique, but a little bit more I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I know what I'm trying to say. I just can't not original, but they have to be creative. Admissions might have to be a little bit more creative on some of their things, but whatever. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think they need to do
admissions have been creative for high school students getting in if the player was good enough for a long time.
I know. Well, I mean, you look at it, you don't even really hear about many freshmen and some of these younger players. It's all about the transfer portal. Everywhere you look, it's about the transfer portal. And I think I might try to go to like one of the higher level AAU tournaments around here in Ohio to see if I see any college coaches. I mean, obviously mid-majors are signing high school kids, but to make them into better players, and then they can go somewhere bigger. The one team we didn't talk about is the MAC is Akron. They brought in some studs from West Virginia. But I'll be curious to see what Coach DeVries does. Oh yeah, Coach DeVries. Yeah, Tucker DeVries we had on the podcast. He's going to obviously with his dad to West Virginia. I wonder if we've got to have them both on to see if he had to work too hard to get him to go to West Virginia with him. But
yeah, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that living room at that home. So.
Yeah. What else? You got anything else for me? We got anything else to talk about? I'm just trying to think. Hopefully, we got some more guests coming up. I mean, we do. We're working on some people and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, let us know where you want us to. We're starting to put plans together for next season for some away games. So let us know where you think LT and I should travel to. We've got our own ideas, but we want to hear from you guys where we should go.
Yes, awesome. So don't forget. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, smash, tap,
5 stars.
5 stars. The subscribe button on YouTube, also Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And then Sam loves 5 stars, just like I like
Love
ice cream
5
cones.
stars. Like, it makes my day.
It does,
I
it does.
I can have such a shitty day, and then like you'll text me like a 5-star review, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
somebody.
And
in
it's
this
even
world
and it's even better when it's not your mom or my mom.
I know,
my
right?
mom,
I'm like,
my mom
when
wouldn't
we're
even know
like,
how to
hey,
do
was
it.
this your friend or my friend? I'm like, no, it's a complete random stranger who actually enjoys the show.
Yeah,
So-
once you get past 10 5-star reviews, it's all people you might not know and do not know. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week on the Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience.
Let's get it, LT.